Every night, your brain builds an entire universe from nothing. No inputs, no external data, no light hitting your retina. And you believe every bit of it. That should terrify you. Because if you really sit with that fact, if you really let it settle into your bones, it raises a question that most people spend their entire lives never asking. And I think it is one of the most important questions there is. If your brain can construct a complete, convincing, immersive reality without any input from the outside world, then how do you know, I mean really know, that the reality you are experiencing right now is any different? Well, let me tell you what I mean by that, because this is not philosophy. This is not some late night dorm room speculation. This is what the science actually says. And it is stranger than you think. You see, every night when you fall asleep, your brain does something extraordinary. It constructs a fully immersive three-dimensional world, complete with light, sound, emotion, other people, gravity, even physics that feels real. You see faces you have never met. You walk through buildings that do not exist. You feel fear, joy, love, pain. And not once during the dream do you stop and say, wait, none of this is real. Not once. You are completely taken in by it. Think about that. Your brain generates reality. That is its job. Not to show you what is out there, but to build a model so convincing that you never question it. Now, during the day, it uses sensory data as input. Light hits your eyes, sound waves hit your ears, pressure hits your skin, and the brain takes all that raw data and constructs a model. Fine, that seems reasonable. But during the night, your brain proves it does not need any of that input. It just runs the simulation anyway. No eyes needed. No ears needed. No input from the external world at all. And the result is so convincing that you feel genuine terror during a nightmare. Your heart races, you sweat, your body responds as if the threat is real, because as far as your brain is concerned, it is real. The simulation is that good. Now, the neuroscience on this is very, very clear. During REM sleep, your visual cortex is just as active as when you are awake. Let me say that again. The part of your brain that processes vision is firing away during dreams, exactly the way it does when your eyes are open and light is streaming in. But there is no light streaming in. There is no external visual data at all. Your brain is generating the entire visual experience internally. And here is the really interesting part. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for critical thinking, logic, the part that would say, wait a minute, I was just in my bedroom, how am I now flying over a purple ocean? That part goes mostly offline during REM sleep. That is why dreams feel real. It is not that the simulation gets better at night, it is that the part of you that would catch the lie shuts down. Think about what that means. You have a reality generating engine in your head, and you have a reality checking system. During the day, both are running. During the night, the generator keeps going, but the checker takes a break. And without the checker, you believe absolutely everything the generator produces. Now, here is the question that should keep you up at night. If your brain can build a completely convincing false reality with zero external input, what makes you so sure the version it builds during the day is any more real? And before you answer that too quickly, let me show you what we actually know about how much of reality you are detecting during the day. Because it is far, far less than you think. You see, I spent my life working with quantum electrodynamics, the most precisely tested theory in the history of science, accurate to 11 decimal places. And here is what that theory tells us about the world you think you see. You do not see reality. You see a tiny, tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, roughly 380 to 700 nanometers in wavelength. That is it. That is your window into the electromagnetic universe. Now, the full electromagnetic spectrum spans from gamma rays at 10 to the minus 12 meters, all the way to radio waves at kilometers long. Visible light, the part you can actually detect, is about 0.0035% of that spectrum. Let me put that number in perspective for you. You are blind to 99.9965% of the electromagnetic information in the room you are sitting in right now. Think about that for a second. Radio waves are passing through your body at this very moment. Infrared radiation is bouncing off your skin. Ultraviolet light is streaming through your windows. X-rays from distant cosmic events are hitting you as I speak. You detect none of it. None at all. And here is what your brain does with that tiny, tiny sliver of information. It takes that 0.0035%, fills in the gaps with assumptions, predictions, and outright fabrications, and presents you with what it calls reality. Now, I want to be very precise about this. That is not perception. That is a controlled hallucination that happens to be useful for survival. Your brain evolved to keep you alive on the African savanna. It evolved to detect predators, find food, attract mates, and avoid falling off cliffs. It did not evolve to show you the true nature of reality. It evolved to show you a useful cartoon. And there is a very, very big difference between useful and true. Now, this is where it gets genuinely strange. And I mean strange in a way that has been bothering physicists for almost 100 years. In quantum mechanics, we have something called the measurement problem. And the measurement problem is not some obscure technical detail. It goes right to the heart of what we mean by reality itself. You see, before you measure a particle, it does not have a definite state. It exists in what we call a superposition, a mathematical combination of all possible states simultaneously. Not one state that we just do not know about, all of them, at once. The moment you measure it, the superposition collapses into one definite outcome. This is not a metaphor, this is not philosophy, this is what the equations say and what every experiment confirms. Now, the Copenhagen interpretation, which Niels Bohr championed and which I always had complicated feelings about, says that the act of observation is what brings a definite reality into existence. Before observation, the question, what is the particle actually doing, has no answer, not because we do not know, because there is no fact of the matter, there is nothing to know. The particle is not secretly in one state and we just have not looked yet. It genuinely is in all states until observation forces a choice. And you know what? That is exactly what happens in a dream. In a dream, the world does not exist until you look at it. You turn a corner and the street appears. You open a door and the room generates itself. Nothing exists in the dream until your dreaming mind attends to it. The rest is just, well, potential, undefined, waiting to collapse into something specific the moment your attention lands on it. Now I am a physicist, not a mystic. The parallel is not proof of anything, but the structural similarity is worth sitting with. Both in quantum mechanics and in dreams, reality seems to require an observer to become definite. The universe might be more like a dream than we are comfortable admitting. And I think the discomfort is precisely why most people do not sit with this long enough. Now, let me tell you about something that happened after 1988, because the brain science that followed would have fascinated me deeply. In 2010, a team at the Max Planck Institute led by Martin Dressler began using functional magnetic resonance imaging to study lucid dreamers. These are people who become aware they are dreaming while still inside the dream. They know it is a dream, but they do not wake up. They stay in it, conscious and aware. And here is what Dressler found. When a lucid dreamer clenches their fist inside the dream, the same motor cortex areas activate as when they clench their fist while awake. The same neurons fire. The same brain regions light up. The brain does not distinguish between dreamed actions and real actions at the neural level. As far as your motor cortex is concerned, a dreamed fist clench and a real fist clench are the same event. Think about that. Your brain cannot tell the difference between doing something in reality and doing something in a dream. The hardware does not care about the source of the signal. It processes both the same way. And it does not stop there. A 2017 study published in Nature Neuroscience by Giulio Tononi's team at the University of Wisconsin showed that the posterior cortical hot zone, a region at the back of the brain, is the area most associated with conscious experience during both waking and dreaming states. The content of dreams and the content of waking perception use the same neural hardware, the same region, the same circuits. Your brain is running the same reality engine in both cases. The only difference is the input source. During the day, the input comes from your senses. At night, the input comes from memory, emotion, and internally generated signals. But the engine itself is identical. Alan Hobson at Harvard spent decades studying this, and he concluded that dreaming is not a bizarre malfunction. It is the brain doing exactly what it always does, generating a model of reality, except without the constraint of external sensory data. The machinery does not shut down when you sleep, it just switches inputs, and the implication is profound. Waking consciousness is not fundamentally different from dreaming. It is a dream that is anchored to external data. Remove the anchor, and the dream continues just fine on its own. Your brain has been doing this your entire life. Every night it proves that it does not need reality to create experience. It has been generating experience from scratch the entire time. Now, people today love to talk about simulation theory. Elon Musk says the probability we are in base reality is 1 in billions. Philosophers like Nick Bostrom have formalized the argument with careful logic. But I think most of them approach it from the wrong direction. They ask, could a computer simulate reality? Could some advanced civilization build a machine powerful enough to create a convincing simulated universe? But I would ask a different question. A much simpler question. Your brain already simulates reality every single night, and you fall for it completely. You do not need a supercomputer. You do not need an advanced civilization. You have a 1.4 kilogram organ made of fat and water that builds entire worlds, convincing enough to make your heart race, your body sweat, your emotions surge. If a 3-pound organ can do that, then the question is not whether simulated realities are possible. Of course they are possible. You create one every night. The question is whether you have any reliable way to confirm you are not in one right now. And that is a much harder question to answer. You see, the philosopher Zhuangzi asked this 2400 years ago. He dreamed he was a butterfly flitting around doing butterfly things. And when he woke up, he could not be certain whether he was a man who had dreamed of being a butterfly or a butterfly now dreaming of being a man. Most people hear that story and smile, as if it is a charming little thought experiment. But sit with it, really sit with it. He had no way to resolve the question, and neither do you. Descartes hit the same wall in 1641 with his meditations. He tried systematically to doubt everything. He could doubt the existence of the physical world, he could doubt his own body, he could doubt mathematics, he could not logically prove that his entire experience was not a dream manufactured by some deceiving demon. He retreated to cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But even that only proves that something is experiencing. It says nothing about the nature of what is being experienced. Something is happening. But what, and is it what it seems to be? Descartes could not answer that, and honestly, nobody has answered it since. Now let me tell you what I think. And I say this as someone who spent his entire career demanding evidence and distrusting comfortable stories. I think reality is far stranger than the version your brain shows you, and the math points in that direction very clearly. Quantum field theory says that what you call empty space is actually a seething ocean of virtual particles popping in and out of existence. Not metaphorically, literally. The vacuum is not empty, it is the busiest place in the universe. And the vacuum energy of 1 cubic centimeter of empty space, if you could extract it, contains more energy than all the matter in the observable universe. That is what the equations say. You are surrounded by, you are immersed in, an ocean of energy and activity that your senses cannot detect at all. You walk through it every day, completely oblivious, because your brain was never designed to show it to you. And you know what? In 1948, a Dutch physicist named Hendrik Casimir predicted something remarkable. He said that if you put two uncharged metal plates very close together in a vacuum, the virtual particles between the plates would be restricted while the ones outside would not, and the plates would be pushed together by the pressure difference. The vacuum itself would exert a measurable force. Most physicists thought this was, well, interesting math, but probably not real. Then, in 1997, Steve Lamoureux at Los Alamos measured it, and the plates moved. Exactly as Casimir predicted. The vacuum is not empty, it pushes things around, and you cannot see any of it. So here is what I keep coming back to. Your brain evolved to show you a useful cartoon. Not a lie exactly, but a simplification so dramatic that it barely resembles what is actually there. You see surfaces and colors and objects with hard edges. What is actually there are quantum fields, probability waves, virtual particles, and forces that operate at scales your nervous system was never built to detect. And every night, when you dream, your brain drops even the pretense of checking its model against external data. It just generates the cartoon freely, and you believe it with your whole being. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. I have said that many times in many contexts, but I think it applies here more than anywhere else. Your dreams are your brain fooling you with zero effort, no external data needed, no elaborate setup. It just runs the reality engine without the anchor of sensory input, and you are completely, totally taken in every single time. You never catch it in the act. You never say, wait, this street was not here a moment ago, this person has no face, the laws of physics are broken. You accept all of it because the part of your brain that would question it is offline. And here is the thought I want to leave you with. The terrifying possibility, the one that the neuroscience and the physics both point toward, is that the waking version is not as different from the dreaming version as you want it to be. Yes, during the day, your brain checks its model against incoming sensory data. But as we covered, it is only checking against 0.0035% of the available electromagnetic information. And even that tiny sliver gets filtered, compressed, interpreted, and in many cases outright fabricated by your visual cortex before it reaches conscious awareness. There is a phenomenon called change blindness. Researchers have shown that you can change large portions of a visual scene, swap out a person you are talking to for a completely different person, and many subjects do not notice. They do not notice because they were never seeing the full scene to begin with. They were seeing their brain's model of the scene. And the model did not update because the brain decided the change was not important enough to flag. You are not looking at reality through a clear window. You are looking at a painting your brain made, and it updates the painting when it feels like it. The painter works from a few reference points and fills in the rest from memory, expectation, and statistical guessing. That is waking perception. That is what you call being awake. Now, I do not say any of this to make you feel hopeless or to suggest that nothing is real. I say it because I find it beautiful. And I think it is much more interesting to live not knowing, to live with this uncertainty, than to walk around thinking you have a clear window into objective reality when you do not. The honest position, the scientific position, is to say we are working with a profoundly limited model. We know the model is limited. We know the model fills in gaps. We know the model can run entirely on its own with no external input and still be convincing. And knowing all of that, we keep looking. We keep measuring. We keep testing. We keep trying to catch ourselves in the act of being fooled. That is science, not certainty, not a clear view of the truth, but the disciplined, humble, relentless effort to be a little less fooled today than we were yesterday. And every night when you close your eyes and your brain builds the universe from nothing and you wander through it, believing every bit of it, that is not a malfunction. That is your brain showing you its cards. It is showing you exactly what it does. It builds worlds. It has always built worlds. The one it builds during the day just happens to be tethered to a thin stream of sensory data, checked against 0.0035% of what is actually out there. You have been inside a simulation your entire life. The question is not whether it is a simulation. The neuroscience settled that. The question is how good the error correction is. And every night, when the error correction shuts off and the simulation runs free and you believe it completely, you get your answer. You get a glimpse of just how little stands between you and a convincing dream. And you know what? I think that is wonderful, not frightening. Wonderful. Because it means reality. Whatever it is far richer, far stranger, far more interesting than the cartoon your brain is showing you. The imagination of nature is far, far greater than the imagination of man. And we are only just beginning to peek behind the curtain. Think about that.